Commander Vale stood at the observation deck of the Imperial Command Ship Asterisk, Eternal Glory Asterisk, his four eyes fixed on the holographic display of a small blue planet. Behind him, the soft hum of advanced machinery filled the air as his analysts worked tirelessly at their stations. After 10,000 years of expanding the Empire's reach across the galaxy, something about this primitive world made his scales tingle with unease. "Show me the warfare history again," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of experience. The holographic display shifted, showing a timeline of human conflicts spanning thousands of years. One of his analysts, Officer Reed, stepped forward. "Sir, the humans have fought approximately 15,000 wars among themselves in their recorded history. They went from simple spears to nuclear weapons in less than 10,000 years." Vale's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones continued studying the data and their current military capability. "They have only reached their fourth planet, sir. Their weapons are primitive by our standards. Nuclear fission, early fusion technology, and basic energy weapons." Reed paused, checking his data tablet. "However, there's something unusual about their development pattern." Vale turned all four eyes to Reed, interest piqued. "Explain." "Most species follow a linear path of technological development, sir. But humans," Reed brought up a new display showing technological advancement curves. "They have sudden, unexpected leaps. During their conflicts, their technology advances at 3 to 4 times the normal rate. It's as if warfare drives their innovation." The commander walked closer to the display, his clawed hand reaching out to manipulate the hologram. "Show me their current military structure." The display changed to show Earth's defense systems. What Vale saw made him uncomfortable. Where other species typically built unified, standardized defense systems, humans had a chaotic mix of different technologies and approaches. Their orbital platforms used varying designs, their space vessels followed different doctrines, and their ground forces employed a wide range of tactics. "They're inefficient," Reed noted. "They maintain multiple competing military forces, different weapon designs, varying combat doctrines." "No," Vale interrupted, his voice sharp. "Not inefficient. Adaptable." He expanded the display to show more detail. "Look at their history. Every time a superior force appeared, they adapted. Every time they faced a seemingly unbeatable weapon, they found a way around it. They don't just learn from victory, they learn even more from defeat." Vale brought up the image of a human military exercise. "See how they practice. They're not just training to win. They're training to survive loss, to fight while damaged, to adapt when their primary weapons fail." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "In all my years, I've never seen a species that treats warfare as an art form." A junior analyst spoke up from her station. "But Commander, they're so far behind us technologically. Our smallest scout ship could destroy their largest military vessel." Vale turned to face his crew, all four eyes glowing with intensity. "The Ricks were technologically superior to us when we first encountered them. Do you know why we won that war?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Because they couldn't imagine fighting any way except their way. Every time we lost a battle, we adapted. Every time they won, they became more convinced of their superiority." He turned back to the display of Earth. "And these humans, they've been adapting and evolving through warfare their entire history. They don't just accept defeat and surrender like the other species we've encountered. They learn, they change, and they come back stronger." Vale reached a decision. "Send word to the Imperial Council. Tell them we need to revise our standard contact protocols. This species," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "this species needs to be approached differently." "Different how, sir?" Reed asked. "With extreme caution," Vale replied, his voice grave. "Most species we encounter have to learn warfare. These humans, they've been breathing it since they first picked up stones as weapons. And if we're not careful," he gestured to the display showing humanity's exponential growth in technology during wartime, We might just teach them too much, too quickly. As his crew rushed to prepare the report, Vale continued studying the holographic display of Earth. In his long career, he had helped subjugate hundreds of species, but something told him humans would be different. They weren't just another primitive civilization to be conquered. They were a sleeping giant, and Vale couldn't shake the feeling that if the Empire woke this giant carelessly, they might not like what happened next. "Send another scout ship," he ordered. "I want eyes on every aspect of their civilization. And this time," he added with unusual emphasis, "tell our observers to stay well out of their detection range. Something tells me we don't want these humans knowing we're watching." Not yet. The grand meeting hall of the Imperial Diplomatic Vessel *, Voice of Peace *, gleamed with polished metals and floating holographic displays. Admiral Stone of the United Earth Defense Force sat at one end of the long table, his weathered face showing no emotion as he read through the Empire's terms for the 15th time. Across from him, Imperial High Diplomat Gray shifted uncomfortably on his floating chair, all 6 of his arms fidgeting with various diplomatic seals. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Stone said, his voice calm but firm. "You want Earth to give up independent military development, accept Imperial oversight of all our technology, and limit our space expansion to pre-approved zones." He placed the tablet down carefully. "And in return, we get protected status within your empire." "Yes." Gray's translator conveyed his enthusiasm. "Just like thousands of other species enjoy. You'll be safe under our protection, guided by our wisdom. And treated like children," Stone interrupted. The other human delegates around him remained silent, but their faces showed similar disapproval. "Tell me, Diplomat Gray, do you offer the same deal to species that are more advanced than humans?" Gray's upper arms froze mid-gesture. "Well, no, but that's because you can't force them to accept such terms," Stone finished. He stood up, his simple blue uniform a stark contrast to Gray's ornate diplomatic robes. "Let me share something about humans with you. We've spent our entire history fighting against people who claimed they wanted to protect us while taking away our freedom." From his observation post above the meeting hall, Commander Vale watched with growing concern. This wasn't following any of the standard diplomatic patterns. Most species either accepted protection eagerly or cowered in fear. These humans were doing neither. Stone walked to the main holographic display and brought up Earth's counter-proposal. "Here are our terms: equal trading rights, mutual defense agreements, open cultural exchange, and most importantly, complete sovereignty over our military and technological development." Gray's skin shifted to a pale shade of distress. But that's unprecedented. No newly contacted species has ever asked to be treated as equals. Stone's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then maybe it's time for a precedent." Vale felt his scales tingle again. In all his years of service, he'd never seen a primitive species negotiate like this. They weren't begging, they weren't submitting, and most worryingly, they weren't afraid. "This is impossible," Gray declared, all 6 arms waving in agitation. "The Empire cannot accept such terms from a species that hasn't even colonized its own star system." Stone's response was quiet but clear. Then the Empire should be prepared for humanity to decline its generous offer of protection. He nodded to his delegates, and they all stood in unison. "We'll give you 1 standard Earth week to consider our counter-proposal. After that, we'll assume these negotiations have failed." As the humans left the meeting hall, Vale received an urgent message from his analysts. They had detected unusual movement patterns among Earth's orbital defense platforms. The humans hadn't just come to negotiate. They'd come prepared for the negotiations to fail. Later, in his private quarters, Vale reviewed the security footage of the meeting. He paused on Stone's face during key moments of the discussion. There was something in the human's eyes that bothered him. Not fear, not anger, but a calm readiness. Like a warrior who had already accepted that battle was inevitable. "Commander," his communication officer's voice interrupted his thoughts. "The Imperial Council requests your presence. They want your assessment of the human response." Vale looked one last time at Stone's frozen image. "Tell them," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "tell them that if we handle this wrong, we might create exactly what we feared. A human military operating at full capacity with a genuine reason to fight us." As he prepared for the council meeting, Vale realized something else that disturbed him. Throughout the entire negotiation, Admiral Stone and his delegates had shown no sign of awe at the Empire's superior technology. It was as if they had already decided that whatever advantage the Empire had was temporary. And based on everything Vale had learned about human history, that confidence worried him more than any weapon they could build. The Imperial battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 5,000 ships arranged in the time-tested Spear of Dawn pattern. At their head, the dreadnought Imperial Will prepared to launch the first strike against Earth's orbital defenses. Commander Vale watched from his command post, his 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "The humans have detected our arrival. Their defensive platforms are powering up." Vale studied the human defenses. They seemed primitive, a scattered network of satellites, small combat stations, and what appeared to be hastily armed civilian platforms. This should have been routine, like the hundreds of subjugations before. So why did his scales still tingle with warning? "Begin standard subjugation pattern," he ordered, following the Empire's billion-year-old protocols. "Disable their primary defense nodes first." The first wave of Imperial ships launched their attack, energy beams cutting through space toward Earth's orbital platforms. Vale expected to see the platforms explode or go dark. Instead, something impossible happened. The beams hit what looked like empty space and split apart, scattered by invisible shields that shouldn't have existed according to their intelligence reports. "Sir," his sensor officer shouted, "the humans, their defensive platforms are changing." Vale watched in disbelief as the human satellites began to move, their orbits shifting in ways that defied standard tactical predictions. Some merged together into larger units, while others split apart into swarms of smaller drones. "Impossible," someone whispered. "Their technology can't be this advanced." "No," Vale realized, his scales rippling with understanding. "It's not advanced. It's different." He zoomed in on one of the transforming platforms. They didn't build perfect weapons. They built weapons that could change. The human counterattack came from an unexpected direction. Small, fast ships that his sensors had dismissed as debris suddenly powered up, revealing themselves as stealth fighters. They struck from behind, their weapons not particularly powerful, but precisely targeted at spots his ship's shields were weakest. "Evasive maneuvers," Vale ordered, but the Empire's ships were too rigidly arranged. Their perfect formation had become a perfect target. "Sir, we're losing ships." His tactical officer's voice carried disbelief. "The humans, they're learning from each hit. Their weapons are adapting to our shield frequencies." Vale watched as the first wave of Imperial ships retreated in disarray. The human defense platforms had absorbed the initial attack and were now counterattacking with increasing effectiveness. Each time an Imperial tactic worked, the humans would adapt within minutes, sometimes seconds. "Status report," he demanded. "We've lost 37 ships, sir. Another 53 heavily damaged." The tactical officer paused. "Sir, that's more ships than we've lost in the last century of expansions." Vale stared at the tactical display, watching as the human defenses continued to evolve. Their weapons weren't just machines. They were learning systems, changing and adapting with each engagement. While the Empire's ships fought according to ancient, perfect protocols, the humans fought like they always had throughout their history. Learning, changing, surviving. "Sir," his communication officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. From Admiral Stone." Vale clenched his clawed hand. "Put it through." Admiral Stone's voice filled the command deck, calm and almost conversational. "Commander Vale, I trust we've made our position on your protection clear. Would you like to reconsider our counterproposal?" Before Vale could respond, new alarms blared. His sensor officer's voice shook as he reported, "Sir, multiple launches detected from Earth's surface. Hundreds, no, thousands of small ships lifting off. They're coming from everywhere. Military bases, civilian spaceports, even private launch facilities." Vale watched as clouds of human vessels rose from Earth's atmosphere. They weren't the uniform, perfectly engineered warships of the Empire. They were a chaos of different designs, sizes, and configurations. Civilian ships transformed into warriors, cargo vessels turned weapon platforms, mining ships bristling with improvised arms. "All ships, pull back to defensive positions," Vale ordered. He looked at the image of Admiral Stone on his screen. "This isn't over." Stone's reply was simple. "We know. We're just getting started." As the Imperial fleet retreated to regroup, Vale realized a chilling truth. The Empire had spent 1 billion years perfecting the art of victory. But humans had spent their entire history perfecting the art of surviving defeat. And now they were showing the galaxy exactly what that meant. 3 days into the war, Commander Vale stood in the Empire's Strategic Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing battles across the solar system. Each screen told the same story. Imperial forces struggling against human tactics that made no sense, until suddenly they made perfect sense. "Show me the Mars incident again," he ordered. The main display lit up with footage from 12 hours ago. An Imperial battle group had cornered a group of human ships near Mars' largest mining colony. Victory seemed certain until the humans did something unprecedented. They turned their mining lasers into weapons, reported Officer Reed, still sounding shocked. The lasers were designed to cut through planetary rock, not for combat. But they modified them mid-battle, used Mars' magnetic field to boost their power, and cut 3 of our heavy cruisers in half. Vale watched the replay. The human ships weren't military vessels at all. They were mining ships, cargo haulers, and construction vehicles, all modified for war. While Imperial ships were built for one purpose, human vessels seemed built to become anything they needed to be. "Sir," a junior analyst called out, "you need to see this. Sector 7, near Earth's moon." The display shifted to show a new battle. A group of small human ships was engaging an Imperial destroyer. The humans were clearly outgunned, but they weren't fighting like any military force Vale had ever seen. "Are they flying in circles?" someone asked. "No," Vale realized, his scales darkening with concern. "They're dancing." The human ships moved in complex patterns, weaving around each other like partners in a deadly dance. Each ship played a different role. Some drew fire, others provided cover, while others waited for precisely the right moment to strike. It wasn't the rigid, efficient combat doctrine of the Empire. It was art. "These patterns," Vale muttered. "Where have I seen them before?" Officer Reed checked his data tablet. "Sir, they match human aerial combat records from something called World War II. They're using tactics from their own history, adapted for space warfare." A new alert drew their attention. The display showed a civilian cruise ship, filled with tourists, approaching an Imperial blockade near Venus. The Empire's ships prepared to escort it to safety, following standard protocols for protecting civilian vessels. That's when the cruise ship's outer hull split open like a flower, revealing a core of military-grade weapons. Before the Imperial ships could react, the civilian vessel had destroyed 2 cruisers and damaged 3 more. "How?" demanded an Imperial admiral who had joined them. "How did they hide those weapons from our scans?" "They didn't," Vale answered, understanding dawning in all 4 of his eyes. "Our scans showed exactly what was there. We just didn't imagine they would build military ships inside civilian ones. No species has ever done that before." The displays kept updating with more battles, more surprises. Humans using space debris as improvised weapons, cargo ships releasing clouds of mining explosives as makeshift minefields, construction vessels using their magnetic grapples to throw asteroids at Imperial formations. "Sir," Reed reported, his voice tense. "Intelligence update from Deep Space Monitoring. Remember those human colony ships that fled the system when we arrived? The ones we ignored because they were obviously civilian evacuees." Vale felt his scales tingle. They weren't running away, were they? "No, sir. They were hunting. They'd been attacking our supply lines, using long-range scanners we didn't know they had. 3 of our primary supply convoys are just gone." Vale walked to the main strategic display, studying the pattern of battles across the solar system. The humans weren't trying to win through superior technology or numbers. They were winning by changing the rules of war itself. "In all our history," he said quietly, "we've never fought an enemy like this. Other species tried to match our military might. Humans." He gestured at the displays. "Humans turn everything into a weapon. They don't fight the way they're supposed to. They fight the way they choose to." As if to emphasize his point, a new alert showed human ships using Venus's gravity to slingshot themselves at Imperial positions, achieving speeds that made their primitive weapons deadly even against advanced shields. "Send word to all commands," Vale ordered. "Stop trying to predict human tactics. There is no pattern, no doctrine to analyze. They're not fighting a war. They're fighting thousands of different wars, all at once." The Imperial Admiral looked at the displays with growing horror. Is this why they survived so long on their world? Is this why they advanced so quickly? "No," Vale replied, watching another Imperial formation fall to seemingly impossible human tactics. "This is why they thrived." The Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Commander Vale finished his presentation. The massive holographic display in the center of the room showed the devastating losses from just 1 week of fighting humans. Around the circular table, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat stunned. "Impossible," the Grand Marshal whispered, his ceremonial armor dulled under the harsh light. "We've lost more ships in 7 days than in the last 1,000 years combined." Vale stood firm, all 4 eyes focused on the council. "The numbers are accurate, but the losses aren't the most important part." He waved his clawed hand, changing the display to show human battle tactics. "What matters is why we're losing." The Supreme Admiral leaned forward, her crystalline form catching the light. "Explain." "We've been fighting wars the same way for 1 billion years," Vale said, bringing up images of past conquests. "We perfect a strategy. We apply it. We win. But humans." He paused, showing footage of human ships using seemingly random tactics. "Humans don't fight like that." "Because they're primitive?" asked one council member. "Because they're survivors," Vale corrected. He displayed an analysis of Earth's history. "Look at their evolution. Most species evolved through cooperation or competition. But humans," he zoomed in on key events in human history, "they evolved through warfare." The display showed human battles throughout history, ancient armies adapting to new weapons, nations developing countermeasures to seemingly unstoppable forces, smaller forces defeating larger ones through cunning. "Every other species we've encountered specialized in specific types of warfare," Vale continued. "The Crystal Collective excelled at energy weapons. The Hive Unity mastered swarm tactics. But humans," he showed clips of recent battles, "humans master everything they touch." "Surely you exaggerate," the Grand Marshal protested. "They're barely out of their solar system." Vale brought up new data. 6 hours ago, we intercepted a human transmission. They've already reversed engineered parts of our shield technology. Not by studying it scientifically, but by watching how it fails in combat. He let that sink in. They learn faster during war than any species we've ever encountered. The Supreme Admiral's crystalline form darkened with concern. "How is this possible?" "Because their entire history is adaptation through conflict," Vale explained. He showed Earth's geological record. Their planet tried to kill them with ice ages. They survived. Massive predators threatened them. They became better predators. Natural disasters struck. They learned to rebuild stronger. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Every catastrophe made them more resilient. Every war made them more adaptable. The display shifted to show current battle statistics. Our standardized tactics are failing because humans have never fought a standardized war. They don't follow military doctrine. They invent new doctrines mid-battle. They don't just use weapons. They turn everything into a weapon. What are you suggesting? The Grand Marshal demanded. That we cannot defeat them. I'm suggesting, Vale said carefully, that every day we fight them, we're teaching them how to beat us. Our billion years of perfect warfare mean nothing against a species that treats chaos as an advantage. He showed one final image. A human child playing with building blocks, knocking them down and rebuilding them differently each time. This is how they think. They don't see failure as defeat. They see it as a lesson. Every time we destroy their ships, they build better ones. Every time we use a tactic, they learn to counter it. They don't just adapt to survive. They thrive on adaptation itself. The council chamber remained silent as the implications became clear. Their perfect empire, built on unchanging protocols and absolute order, was facing a species that turned change itself into a weapon. We're not just fighting their military, Vale concluded. We're fighting their entire history. Every war they've ever fought, every survival skill they've ever learned, every adaptation they've ever made. It's all being used against us now. The Supreme Admiral's voice was quiet but clear. Then what do you suggest, Commander? Vale looked at the display of human battles one last time. For the first time in our history, we need to consider the possibility that victory through conventional warfare might not be possible. These humans, they're not just another species to be conquered. They're evolution's answer to the question, what happens when you force life to become unstoppable? The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had always been a navigation hazard. Now it was about to become a battlefield. Commander Vale watched from the bridge of the Asterisk Imperial Will Asterisk as his fleet, the largest the Empire had ever assembled in one place, moved into position. 10,000 ships, Officer Reed reported. The humans have nowhere to run this time. They're trapped between our forces and the asteroid field. Vale wasn't so sure. In 2 weeks of war, he had learned that humans were most dangerous when they seemed trapped. His tactical display showed the human fleet, a mere 800 ships, holding position near a dense cluster of asteroids. Admiral Stone is commanding them personally, Reed added. Our analysts say they're finally out of tricks. Vale's scales tingled with warning. No, they're never out of tricks. He studied the tactical display more closely. What are they doing with those mining ships in the back? Before Reed could answer, the human fleet began to move. But instead of attacking or retreating, they split into dozens of smaller groups, each heading for different asteroids. Mining lasers flared to life, but they weren't targeting Imperial ships. They were cutting into the asteroids. Sir, his sensor officer shouted. The humans, they're using their mining ships too. The realization hit Vale too late. All ships, evasive action. They're not mining the asteroids there. The first asteroid exploded, its fragments accelerated by human ships using magnetic grapples and fusion drives. Thousands of rock fragments, each moving at incredible speeds, tore through space toward the Imperial fleet. The perfect formation of Imperial ships suddenly became a perfect target. Shields at maximum, Vale ordered, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not chunks of rock moving at relativistic speeds. More asteroids began to explode, turned into deadly shrapnel clouds by human mining charges. The Imperial fleet's formation broke apart as ships tried to dodge the cosmic shotgun blast. But the humans weren't done. New contacts, Reed shouted. They're launching something from Earth's direction. Vale watched in disbelief as hundreds of small, fast ships emerged from hiding behind larger asteroids. They had been waiting there, powered down, impossible to detect among the rock field. Now they struck at the scattered Imperial ships like wolves attacking a broken herd. "Sir, our formation is compromised." The tactical officer's voice was frantic. "We can't maintain coordinated shield coverage." That's when Vale saw Admiral Stone's real plan. The asteroid attack wasn't just about causing damage. It was about creating chaos. Imperial ships built their defense through perfect coordination. Now that coordination was shattered, multiple impacts. Reed reported as more asteroid fragments slammed into Imperial ships. "We're losing whole squadrons, sir. Our shields can't track this many objects." Through his command view, Vale watched human ships moving through the debris field like fish through water. They had trained for this, he realized. While the Empire saw asteroids as obstacles, humans saw them as weapons, as cover, as tools. "Sir, Admiral Stone is sending a transmission." Vale knew what was coming, but he opened the channel anyway. Stone's voice was calm, almost casual. "Beautiful thing about asteroids, Commander. They don't care how advanced your shields are. Mass times velocity is mass times velocity, whether you've got billion-year-old technology or not." Another wave of explosions lit up space as more asteroids were weaponized. Imperial ships, their perfect formations broken, their coordinated defenses shattered, began to fall back in disarray. "You haven't won," Vale said, even as warning lights flashed across his bridge. "No," Stone agreed, "but we've shown you something important. Every piece of nature you see as an obstacle, we see as an opportunity. Every limitation you accept, we see as a challenge." Another asteroid field exploded, creating a new wave of destruction. "That's the difference between our peoples, Commander. You perfect what works. We make everything work." As Vale watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by rocks and improvised weapons, he finally understood. The Empire had spent 1 billion years becoming the perfect, unstoppable force. But humans had spent their entire history learning how to be the ultimate immovable object. And now they were teaching the galaxy a lesson about which one was stronger. The Imperial Palace's emergency chamber had never been used in its 1,000-year history. Now it was filled with the Empire's highest officials, all watching the massive display showing the aftermath of the asteroid belt battle. Commander Vale stood before them, his scales dulled with exhaustion, but his 4 eyes sharp with purpose. 4,000 ships lost, the Grand Marshal said, his voice hollow. 1/3 of our main fleet, gone. Destroyed by rocks and improvised weapons. No, Vale corrected. Destroyed by our own assumptions. We thought we were fighting primitives. Instead, we were fighting the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. The Supreme Admiral's crystalline form pulsed with angry light. They must be punished for this. We should gather our remaining forces, call in our reserve fleets, and teach them even more about how we fight. Vale interrupted. He brought up a new display showing human adaptation rates. In 3 weeks of war, they've already reverse-engineered aspects of our shield technology. They've learned to detect our ship formations. They've found weaknesses in our tactics we didn't even know existed. The display shifted to show human ships under construction. They were already incorporating elements of Imperial design, but modified in ways the Empire's engineers had never considered. "Every day we fight them, they get stronger," Vale continued. "Not just through technology, but through understanding. They don't just copy our weapons, they improve them. They don't just learn our tactics, they transform them into something new." "What are you suggesting?" the Grand Marshal demanded. "That the mighty Empire should retreat." Vale stood straighter. "I'm suggesting we should do something we've never done before. Learn from our enemy." He brought up footage from various battles. "Look how they fight. Not with perfection, but with endless adaptation. Not with overwhelming force, but with constant innovation. The chamber fell silent as Vale played a intercepted transmission from a human command center. In it, military officers excitedly discussed new weapons they were developing based on Imperial technology. But they weren't just copying. They were combining Imperial tech with human ideas in ways that made even Vale's experienced mind spin. "We've spent 1,000,000,000 years becoming perfect," Vale said. "They'd spent their history learning how to overcome perfection. And now," he showed estimates of human military production. "Now they're taking everything they've learned from fighting us and building something new, something that combines their adaptability with our technology." The Supreme Admiral's color darkened. How long until they can threaten the Empire itself? At their current rate of adaptation, Vale checked his data. Months, maybe a year. Every battle teaches them. Every engagement makes them stronger. They're not just fighting us, they're learning us. He brought up his final display. A simple image of Earth, now surrounded by new defensive systems that showed clear Imperial influence, but with distinctly human modifications. "I recommend we do something unprecedented," Vale said. "We send a warning. Not to the humans, but to our own forces. A warning to stay away from human space." "Admit defeat." The Grand Marshal's voice was shocked. "Accept that these primitives have driven us back. Accept that we found something new," Vale corrected. "A species that turns defeat into strength. An enemy that gets stronger the harder you try to break them." He paused. "A civilization that might, if we're wise, become a valuable ally instead of an unstoppable enemy." The council debated for hours, but in the end, they saw the truth in Vale's words. For the first time in its billion-year history, the Empire issued a retreat order. Every Imperial ship was commanded to withdraw from human space. Every military vessel was warned not to engage human ships unless absolutely necessary. And in the Imperial military archives, a new classification was created: humanity. Apex predators. Warning: do not engage. This species does not know defeat, only evolution. Every failed attempt to subdue them makes them stronger. They do not think like other races. They do not fight like other races. They do not lose like other races. Approach with extreme caution. The humans' response to learning of their new classification was typically human. A simple message sent to Imperial Command: "We told you we wanted equal standing. Now let's talk about that trade agreement as equals. After all, we just learned so much from each other, didn't we?" Commander Vale, reading the message, felt his scales tingle one last time. But this time, it wasn't with warning. It was with anticipation of what this strange, adaptive, unbreakable species might become. Not as subjects of the Empire, but as something far more interesting, equals who had earned their place among the stars through the most human trait of all, turning every defeat into a step toward victory.